I bet you were expecting the 2 of 2 on soldering up flight controllers. I got sidetracked. Yesterday I spent the whole day working on these Crossfire Nano RX Pros. I did start soldering up the second flight controller, but to tell you the truth, the only thing I did is put on the 6 pins for the RC receiver and the 6 pins for the compass. Because I wanted to test the Nano Pro Mavlink telemetry. And that's why yesterday was a very, very long day, because they kind of work like the old Nano. It looks like the straight Nano RX. I don't see any great improvement in them, or didn't. I probably spent 16 to 20 hours yesterday on this. So I've got this flight controller with, like I say, just the pins for the RC receiver was all that was important. But the black ones solder this way in pairs, and the red ones solder this way in pairs, and then the white ones are 4 in this direction. So that's why there's so many pins on that one. Then the original flight controller I started soldering up, it basically has all the pins on it. I did start to do the BEC on it, but then, like I say, I just got a wild hair to go ahead and stick the receiver across these 6 pins and start testing what I bought all this stuff for to begin with. What I've got here is the 2 left wing halves for the 2 mini Talons with the RC receivers I put in them. And out there on the end is one H743, and on the other one is the other H743. Now I also have this 765, which I use as my bench flight controller, so I don't blow up one I'm trying to put in an airplane. So if you remember, I broke the collar on this USB, so I've got a little dongle on there, and I've got it hot glued to the board, so I can use it for testing and stuff. Now it does have the current sensor portion of it's destroyed, so did that with a soldering iron. By the way, I watched Trappy on TBS Couch take a Nano RX and destroy it exactly the way I did with my soldering iron. Lifted a surface mounted capacitor. He, of course, turned around and grabbed the schematic for the circuitry for it and looked up what that component was and found it to be just a filter capacitor. So he just left it off and it still worked. I don't have access to the schematic, so when I lifted my component, I just had to throw that one away. But the other 3 are here. Here's 1 Nano Pro, 2 Nano Pros, 3 Nano Pros, and the 4th one I bought is in the trash can because I destroyed it. But I thought it was funny that Trappy did exactly the same thing I did, and it's just from not paying attention. I do that every now and then. So first up, let's look at how do you do Mavlink via Crossfire. I'm going to be using the Crossfire Micro TX version 2. I'm going to be using it connected to my TX16S, and I'm going to be using it also just like it is with a USB cable in here, because you don't really need to have it connected to a radio to pass Mavlink through it. All you need to do is power it from this connector. So let me show you the setup on this, then I'll show you the setup on the Nano Pro, and then we'll look at how it functions.
Some of you may be old hands at this, but I'm going to go over this for those who are just trying to do it, and for those who've been trying to do it for years and couldn't, because these have been historically a problem. So inside the Micro TX, Mavlink on. It's either on or off. There's not much you can do here. When you turn it on, this will go to Mavlink mode emulation. You cannot change this feature. So now, besides being on the current version of firmware, which I and almost every electronics computer manufacturer on the planet always recommends, that's it. Let's look at the Nano Pro while we're here. Under general 12-channel mode, telemetry needs to be on. I've got this set to minimum power right now. Again, bench use. RF profile dynamic, fail-safe mode, cut, RC by Mavlink on. I don't have a battery connected to this, so I'm not using that battery function. So comes up in 8-channel mode by default. I did change it to 12-channel. Other than that, I think all the rest of this is at factory default. So I do have CRSF transmit and receive here on the first 2 pins. It's not really pertinent to this discussion. We've discussed this before on my past little videos. And also on output 3, we have Mavlink receive, because you can't make 3 transmit. You can on the Nano Diversity. You can have this transmit, receive, transmit, and receive, so it matches straight up with the flight controller. But on the Nanos, you can't. So this is Mavlink receive and Mavlink transmit. These are the 2 wires that are really important to us right now. So I am using the I'm using the H743 version 2 here. I also have a 765, that bench flight controller is a 765. We'll talk about the 743, seeing that's what I'm using. But this will be the same. You have to go in and find out which UART you're going to do Mavlink over. I'm going to do it on UART 4 right here. So my Mavlink receive is connected to this transmit pin, and my Mavlink transmit is connected to this receive pin. Now you have to go into the mapping for these flight controllers and find out what UART you're really talking about in ArduPilot, because hardware differences, they don't match up exactly like they do in iNav. iNav, it's serial 1 is serial 1, serial 2 is serial 2. You're in Fat City. But in Ardu, you have some little quirks here. Okay, I was looking at something else, getting distracted here. So for RX7, TX7, RTS7, and CTS7, you'll notice that is all UART7, but it's serial 1 in Ardu. This column over here is what you have to look at. UART 1 on the flight controller is referred to by UART 2 in Ardu. UART 2 is 3, UART 3 is 4, UART 8 is 5, UART 4 is 6, and UART 6 is serial 7. Okay. So we're talking about TX4 and RX4 right here. Oops. Right here. So what we want to do, again, that's our UART4 in the hardware, but we're talking about serial 6 in Ardu to pass Mavlink. Serial 6. Now, different flight controllers, mapping is different, so you have to come to the information for each flight controller so you can identify what you're going to be talking about when you're using these two pins. So real quick, if we connect to Mission Planner, you can see here I'm running the current version 4.2.0 on this flight controller, and if you come over in the full config and you look at serial 6, you'll see the default for serial 6 is -1 on the protocol, 5700 on the baud rate. We must change these two parameters. We're going to change the baud rate to 115. And we're going to change the serial protocol to 2, which is Mavlink 2. I'll write those parameters out. That's all that has to be done on the RX channel, serial 6, UART4 in Ardu. That's it. So let's see, there's one more thing we need to look at, and that is inside the transmitter and inside Wi-Fi, because I'm going to be using Wi-Fi for this. Inside the Wi-Fi setup, basically I've got it to default except for the Mavlink tab. I did change some of this. I'm using UDP, and this defaults to port 8888. If you don't understand ports, sockets, etc., just go with 8888. Now, I changed my port number to 14550 because the Dragon Link, when it hooks up the same way, uses port 14550. I didn't want to have 8888 for Crossfire and 14550 for Dragon Link, and when I go to connect to the platform, I got to remember, what was that port number? Was it 5760? Was it 8888? Was it 14550? Was it 7? I'm keeping them the same across my platforms. That's all I'm doing here. So that's all inside the transmitter and receiver that needs to be done. So at this point, I'm connected with a USB cable right now. At that point, all you need to do is come into your Windows and connect to the Wi-Fi module, the Crossfire transmitter. And here it is. I'll just click connect. It's doing its thing. It'll take it a sec. So after it connects, you can look at properties, and you're going to find that is located at IP address 192.168.4.1. Okay, so UDP 115.200, click connect. I've already put the socket. I'm going to put the socket in here, 14550, and click OK. You can see link quality starts to come up. When it hits 100 one time, it'll start getting parameters. Link quality also shows up here. There it is, getting parameters. Now you'll notice an already got in there. There they are. That's dropped packets and reach transmissions. Normally, with the other telemetry radios, et cetera, we combat this problem by dropping the baud rate. I can't find out any place in the Crossfire software where you can drop the baud rate from 115/200. Probably if you could drop it from 115/200 down to 57/600, you wouldn't get any, or certainly wouldn't get as many as already got, as this is showing. Now this is one of my Crossfire Nano Pro receivers, and after a fashion, this comes up and seems to work on the bench fine. If I move the flight controller right now, you can see I have movement in the HUD. Everything seems to be working. Now this is the same problem we had with the other Nano Crossfire, all Crossfire receivers, diversity, all of them. When this link quality, it just is not 100% like a cable. Again, I don't like it down this low, but I'm going to fly it to see what's going on. If we click right here on stats, we get to see the packets themselves. And you can see there's just a 60-something% link quality. A little higher here than it shows down here, but that's neither here nor there. What's most important is the bytes per second right here of transfer. As long as this is high enough, this is going to work. You can also see right here, this is a Mavlink 2 connection. So I'm not real thrilled with this, but this is the way I did get it to work on the regular Nano RX on the Skyhunter. The Skyhunter is a fourth flight controller here and a fourth receiver here. I could put on the bench and have another testing point. With 3 flight controllers, 3 receivers, I didn't think I needed to do that. So that's a big airplane. It's hard to get out of the storage rack and stuff. So I just did it with this. So that's one of the receivers. Now real quickly, let me switch to another one here on the bench. So this is the second receiver I've got over there. We'll click connect. 14,550 for me. 8888 default. You'll notice here this starts kind of low here. Again, this has to hit 100 quality before it'll start pulling in perimeters, and it just did. Now it says getting perimeters. Now, I'm not going to make you sit here forever like I did several times yesterday. I would start this. I would walk away. I would wait until my radio started screaming inactivity, which it takes 10 minutes for it to do that. I would walk back over and just blip the throttle, set up another 10 minutes. This never finishes on this receiver. This receiver never, ever, so far, has ever gotten a connection. It just sits here like this, getting perimeters, but it never happens. So during yesterday's flail, I kept working with that one. I pulled one of the pins, the pin on the transmit out of the receiver for the flight controller and the flight controller connector. And of course, it all dropped to no connection at all, which proved to me that my wiring was correct. I mean, it's wired the same as the other one. The other one worked after a fashion. But I have to keep checking all those for problems. But I could not get the second RX to transfer Mavlink, which of course goes back to the same problem I had with the five original Crossfire receivers I have. Might have been more than 5 even, might have been about 9 of them. And each and every one of them had this same problem. They don't want to connect. They don't want to connect. And then the Wi-Fi was updated to 0.04, and the firmware on the receivers themselves came up a few versions. And I do have the one Nano, straight Nano, in the Skyhunter that does work. Out of 9 original receivers, I only got 1 to work. And actually, it's a diversity. I forgot. It is a diversity, but it is passing Mavlink. It does not have the power that the pros do, but it is passing Mavlink, so I can test it in the air. So I don't need to let this run like it's running right now, because I did it for hours yesterday. It never connects. It's not a usable connection. If I go over and I move the flight controller, you can see there's no movement in the HUD. There is nothing being passed, no Mavlink data being passed. And if you come into, let me show you this.
If you come into the radio and go into agent, TBS agent light, whatever it is, and go into the Wi-Fi here, and then go into Mavlink here, you start to see in this list that you have, what is it, 8% packet lost, and this many items transferring. So the Mavlink sort of works, but notice there's 0 download here. So that's from the receiver to the radio. This has nothing to do with the computer, Ardu Pilot, anything like that. The computer might not even be on right now for all it matters. This is just the transmitter powered up and the receiver powered up, and you don't have Mavlink going back and forth. So I fought and fought and fought with this, and of course it was just exactly again like all the Crossfire receivers before it. I had this receiver over there that I had put 4 pins on originally. So I said, I'm just going to go ahead and wire up those other 2 wires. So I got me a 6-pin pigtail out, put the wires in them the way I wanted them to. I've got the 4 going to this 4-pin DuPont connector normally. But then I've got the other 2 out of here. I've just got them out of the connector. I just put a 4-pin connector on up here. But I've got them out, and I put the little wire that comes with the receiver in, soldered it in just like the other 2. So I then had another way to test. Now then, let me go ahead and put this into the mix.
So this is the receiver that I soldered the pins to and then set aside because I wanted to solder straight to the board for the other 2 receivers. But after going to bed about midnight last night, 1 o'clock or so, I got back up and soldered those 2 wires on and tested this receiver. And this is what I found. 14,550. Okay. Looking for 100 here. Got it. Getting perimeters. And look at the way this one reads them in. So 4 Nano Pros I bought. One of them I destroyed with a sorter knife. And the other 3 here, 2 of them work well. Actually, this one works better than the other one that works. You notice there's not many. I already got the Lines going across the top here, signifying perimeters being read in. This is on that 765 wing, using the same UART4. I might have been distracted and didn't see him, but I didn't see an already got. Up there was one, as I started to say. There's the already gots coming in. But this will read in all the perimeters successfully. It even comes up and understands that the 765 wing controller isn't on the current version. It's on the version prior, and it comes up with this message. The link quality goes down to the same, what I consider a low level. In the past, I haven't been able to do much with anything below 70, but we'll see how this works out in the field. And now, if I move this flight controller, you can see in the HUD, I have Mavlink going back and forth. So that's what I spent hours doing yesterday, just because I got some pins on the flight controllers that allowed me to connect them up and test Mavlink. So I have 3 receivers here, 2 of which are going to work for me in the too many talents. I'm glad I have 2 that will work.
But this third receiver that's currently in this wing here just will not work. They're all 3 wired the same. I can put them on. I can put this one on any of the 3 flight controllers. It will not connect. I can put this one on any of the 3 flight controllers. It connects and works. I can put this one receiver on any 3 of the flight controllers. It works. So basically this, in my humble opinion, goes back to the same thing as with the original Crossfire receivers. Mavlink's just flaky. It's not there yet. This receiver won't even do it. Now, I will take this out because I will be putting this receiver in, so I've got 2 planes that work. And I will look at the wiring on this one, but I can't imagine there's anything wrong with it. It's 6 wires. It's very straight setup. So the only thing I can imagine at all is this receiver is just never going to work. The circuitry in it has some kind of problem. And I don't know what Crossfire's problem is putting these things out the door. All I know is for the past year or so, I've messed with about 13 Crossfire receivers. I have 3 that will do Mavlink. 1 Crossfire Diversity with limited power, and these 2 Nano Pros with a half a watt of power that should be really good. But I have 3, and I will have 3 platforms, 2 Mini Talons and 1 Sky Hunter with Crossfire receivers in them, running Mavlink, that I can test for functionality in the air. But my bottom line on this is, for some reason, this hardware is just not ready to go out of the box. And I'd hate to have to buy 10 Crossfire Pros and just go through them, see if they work. If it works, put it in the good pile. If it doesn't work, put it in the bad pile, to find receivers that do work. Now then, as far as Crossfire is concerned, as far as connecting the transmitter to the Wi-Fi, it works every time well. No problem with that whatsoever. With Dragon Link, you have trouble getting your transmitter connected to the Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. If you ever do successfully, Dragon Link works really well. And I did kind of drag Dragon Link along and sort of get it working well, and I will be demonstrating the Dragon Link telemetry versus the Crossfire telemetry. But basically, that was my findings yesterday. 2 of these work well. 1 of them doesn't, out of the box. No explanation for it at all. I have none. I don't know what to tell you. Some of them work, some of them don't. So far, I just do not have an electronic explanation for them, except for there must be some circuitry problems that haven't been found yet. With these working so well, I really don't think the firmware is the problem. Could be a timing issue where this circuitry is just a little bit out of tolerance and the timing kills it. I don't know. So perhaps a firmware change to the timing could make this one start working. I don't know. I'm not going to waste a lot of my time trying to figure it out. Lucky for me, after these 2 mini Talons are built, I've only got the Caprahenia 2 and a second Skyhunter to build, and I'll be done building for a while until I crash enough airplanes to have to buy another one and build it up. But I have been extremely depressed about the Crossfire functionality. I've also been extremely depressed with the Dragon Link functionality. I've got a couple little more experiments I'm going to do around here. Turning off the Wi-Fi in the house, etc., etc., etc. And then, like I've said before, really need to test even this one away from the house and basement, workshop here, in the field, to see if there's some kind of environmental problem in my house that's causing all these problems, because there's been a horrendous amount of it. But since I've gotten into drones, all this stuff, almost 10 years ago, there's always been a lot of problems with all this electronics. If it isn't for documentation not being there, then the electronics has always been a little flaky. In my humble opinion, because of the price, everybody's trying to create this hardware as cheaply as possible. And that doesn't seem to be working. It needs to be some company come up and say, well, our flight controller is going to cost a little more, or our receiver is going to cost a little more, but it's going to work. Sorry, I'm just a little frustrated because I spent a lot of time yesterday on this. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to make my video and publish it. I have to go back to a doctor. They found some problems with my annual checkup last week. I have another doctor's visit Wednesday. May have to have a biopsy on some tissue. Today, the wind is not blowing for the first time in days. It's been bad the past week or so. I did start also yesterday bringing up my ground station and stuff, getting it ready to fly again. But I have one other wrench in the works. Next Monday, I'm going to the beach for a week. I was tired. It was just getting crazy. And I said, I'm just going to stop and we're going to go on a little vacation, try to get me back to good fighting mentality. But I just need some time away. I know this video wasn't the most easy to understand. I probably could do better if I did scripts and stuff, and I will in the future when I get my Part 107 and can charge for some of this, perhaps. I don't know. I may just stay a hobbyist and just basically do these things so when I pass away, my brother can watch the videos and know how to fly all the airplanes and stuff he'll inherit. So, bottom line is, these two work. This one doesn't. Sadly, I can't tell you exactly why. When I pull this one out of the wing, I will look at the wiring and the soldering and everything and see if I can find any reason other than the hardware not being up to snuff. Okay, guys, have a good one. I'll get back to soldering on those flight controllers probably Thursday. I have things to do every Tuesday. Wednesday, I have another doctor's appointment. Thursday and Friday, Saturday, I can do some of this or hopefully go flying. I doubt that will happen. till after vacation. Then Monday, I'm going to the beach. The heck with all this stuff. Thank you so much, guys.